I am so excited to tell you about the three-step simple system that is going to revolutionize your practice and take you to the next level. Now, before I do, let me talk about Fortune 500 companies. Fortune 500 companies are huge. They've got tens of thousands of employees, if not hundreds of thousands. And they grow. Despite the fact that they're accused of being big bureaucracies, they do grow and they do innovate and they do come out with new products and they acquire other companies and they're quite successful. And how does a dental practice relate to a Fortune 500 company? Well, what Fortune 500 companies do every year is they have something called strategic planning. Strategic planning is when the CEO and other groups of executives get together. They often spend 3 to 5 days in a planning session where they fly off to some remote location. They work most of the day, each day, on strategic planning or the plan for the next 12 months. And it's critically important because the CEO then has to go to the board of directors and explain the plan and justify his or her job. What are they going to do to keep this company growing? Because remember, Fortune 500 companies typically answer to stockholders because they're public companies. What does that have to do with a dental practice? And the answer goes back to one of the great consultants, Ram Charan, in the business world, who really talked about in one of his books at one time that operating a fruit cart in India is not that different than running a major company. In other words, that fruit cart, they have to acquire the fruit, they have to merchandise it, market it, put pricing on it, sell it, get new inventory, find a location. Obviously, there's a difference between a fruit cart and a Fortune 500, but there are a lot of moving pieces in dental practices, fruit carts, and Fortune 500 companies that make these businesses successful. Now, the dental practice can copy the strategic planning method of Fortune 500 companies. But as dentists, you don't have time to spend 3 to 5 days off-site planning, fly your team off to a remote location to come up with plans for next year. So we've designed at Levin Group a 3-step simple process that can be done in 2 hours that will be your version of Fortune 500 strategic planning that will revolutionize your practice and take it to the next level. The 3 steps are, number 1, setting numerical targets. Number 2, building systems to achieve the targets. And number 3, using value creation scripting to make the systems work better. Let me break it down for you in this conversation. We set targets. What are targets? Targets are grow the practice by 15% in the next 12 months, have 98% of all patients scheduled at all times, have 99% of all money owed collected at the time of the visit or visits, to have enough hygiene appointments, the exact number of hygiene appointments for 98% of patients to come through in their 6-month, 4-month, or 3-month appointments. There are other targets we could talk about, like having, in general practice, 40% of all of your patients go through initial therapy, 60% of your new patients go through initial therapy, and then referring those that don't improve to periodontists for further treatment. Increasing the number of implants restored in the general practice and the number of implants placed in the surgical practices. And we could continue. So those are targets. We set targets so we know exactly where we're going. Don't worry about how you're going to achieve them. That's the next step. Step 2, build systems to achieve them. Systems are documented step-by-step protocols that the team is to follow to operate the practice. This is where we can achieve another target of the doctor spending 98% of his or her time directly involved in patient care. And while you're thinking you do that, it's probably closer to about 78% for general dentists and less for a lot of specialists. So understand that targets get set and then we build systems to achieve them. Step-by-step protocols, the staff follows them. The results are amazing. Your team will operate at a level that you cannot believe. And then the third step is called value creation scripting. Now, the difference with value creation scripting and our previous scripting before the recession of 2007, 8, and 9 and a little bit in 10. The difference is that scripting was about communication, but value creation scripting is about influence. We've done a lot of work here based on studying the work of Dr. Robert Cialdini, a PhD in the science of influence, and we've looked at that, translated it, and modified it to bring it into dental practices. Value creation scripting is about influencing, getting a patient to accept a certain appointment time, having a patient pay their bill or take care of their balance, having patients accept treatment. There's another target. We want 90% of all patients to accept recommended treatment, whether it's big or small, 90% across the board. We build systems to make that happen. The new patient phone call, the new patient experience, the new patient orientation, the new patient examination or the 5-phase exam that we teach at Levin Group, the new patient follow-up presentation. There might be a second presentation, occasionally a third. The financial options, teaching the 4 financial options, closing the case, and scheduling. Now that represents somewhere around 112 steps with probably about 90 scripts that go with it. And you might think, oh my God, this is so overwhelming, but you're doing a lot of it now. It's like learning how to walk or run slightly differently. You're already doing it, you just want to be able to do it more effectively. So we use the 3-step simple method. Anybody can master this quickly to set targets, to build systems to achieve those targets, and then we add value creation scripting throughout all the systems in different places to influence patients. There is huge psychology around the scripting, things like using the patient's patient's name 3 times in the conversation, using power words that create a positive energy in the conversation, using benefit statements to influence people to accept the recommendation. It's all about influence. Right now your team is communicating. We've got to move them to influencing. So I hope in this conversation you're really beginning to see how this simple 3-step system can take your practice to the next level. We have watched practices just revolutionize and grow. You will never have greater financial progress and more enjoyment in the practice than when you've got these 3 steps as a part of your yearly process in place. Hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you, and get your team excited.